Hello students, I am Professor Dheeraj Kumar Singh from Department of Mechanical Engineering, Sagar Group of Institutions, Sistekar, Bhopal. Dear students, today we are going to discuss second law of thermodynamics. Basically, today we will discuss qualitative difference between heat and work, then we will move further. So dear students, what is the qualitative difference between heat and work? So basically we have studied in our first law of thermodynamics, and our first law of thermodynamics states that a certain energy balance will hold when a system undergoes a change of state or a thermodynamic process, but it does not give any information on whether that change of state or the process is at all feasible or not. Alright, so for an example, the first law indicate whether a metallic bar of uniform temperature can spontaneously become warmer at one end and cooler at the other. Right, so all that the law can state is that if this process did occur, the energy gained by one end would be exactly equal to the lost by the other. Right, so it is the second law of thermodynamics which provides the criteria as to the probability of various processes, and this, our second law of thermodynamics basically gives us the direction for a particular process, right, through the concept of entropy. So that's why we call our second law of thermodynamics as directional law as well, right. So here we can see second law of thermodynamics is spontaneous process. Spontaneous processes are those processes in which you need not to do anything, that occurs or happens by its own, right. So spontaneous processes in nature occurs only in one direction, like heat always flows from a body at a higher temperature to the body at a lower temperature. That means we need not to do any extra work, right, in transferring heat from higher temperature body to lower temperature body. It automatically it occurs. Like water always flows downwards, that from higher altitude to lower altitude, from higher potential to lower potential, and time always flows in the forward direction. So the reverse of these never happen spontaneously, means the reverse of these will never happen by its own, right. You have to do something in it, you have to apply some fundamentals of engineering into it, then it will take in reverse direction. Obviously water can flow from lower altitude to higher altitude, temperature can be transformed from heat can be transformed from lower temperature body to higher temperature body, right. So these things can happen, but these things cannot happen spontaneously, right. So dear students, basically the spontaneity of the process is due to a finite driving potential, sometimes called the force or the cause, and what happens is called the flux, the current or the effect. What happens is called the current or the effect. So basically these transformation or these transfer processes can never spontaneously occur from lower to a higher potential, like, right. So this directional law puts a limitation on energy transformation other than that imposed by the first law. We have seen here we can see first law of thermodynamics simply says that energy is conserved. It does not give any direction for a particular process, right. Okay, first law of thermodynamics was dealing with heat and work, but it doesn't say that in which direction heat will flow, right. Whether it will flow from lower temperature body to higher temperature body, or whether it will flow from higher temperature body to lower temperature body. So from first law of thermodynamics we have not seen all those things, but yes, from the second law of thermodynamics we can see these things, right. So here we can see it is the second law of thermodynamics that gives direction for a particular process through the concept of entropy, and hence second law is also known as directional law. That means, dear students, by the help of second law of thermodynamics we get to know that in which direction our heat is flowing. So this is also known as directional law. If we see here Joule's experiment, so Joule's experiment completely demonstrated that energy when supplied to a system in the form of work can be completely converted into heat. That means Joule told us, or by the help of Joule's experiment we have seen that work can completely converted into heat, right? That means how work transfer gets converted into internal energy increase, then it gets converted into heat transfer. But the complete conversion of heat into work in a cycle is not possible, right? So that's why heat and work are not completely interchangeable forms of energy. Here I have written in the last line that heat and work are not completely interchangeable forms of energy. Dear students, when work is converted into heat, we always have W equal to Q, right? But when heat is converted into work in a complete closed cyclic process, then our heat transfer is greater than work transfer, right? So that's why we are saying that heat cannot be completely converted into work, right? So move to the next slide. Okay, here we will discuss some of the important terms related to second law of thermodynamics, right? So actually we were having a French military engineer, that is Sadi Carnot, and who first studied this aspect of energy transformation in year 1824, and he was the one who has revolutionized the whole world of thermodynamics. So dear students, what is energy reservoirs? So basically we define energy reservoirs at TER. TER is thermal energy reservoir. What is thermal energy reservoir? A thermal energy reservoir is defined as a large body of infinite heat capacity which is capable of absorbing or rejecting an unlimited quantity of heat without suffering appreciable changes in its thermodynamic coordinates, right? So it wants to say that thermal energy reservoir is an energy reservoir from which you can extract as much as amount of heat, but it will not go any temperature change, there will be no any temperature change, or you may supply any amount of heat into it. Also it will not having any temperature change. So I'll give you the example of thermal energy reservoirs. For an example, source. What is source? It is a reservoir which has large capacity of thermal energy and it can supply without undergoing any temperature change. That means there is a reservoir from which we can take or we can supply enormous amount of thermal energy from it, right, without undergoing any temperature change. That means take example of sun. We are getting sunlight from the sun, right? So there will be any possibility that the temperature of sun is decreasing day by day? No. The temperature of sun remains constant. It is 5800 Kelvin and still it is 5800 Kelvin. So any amount of heat you will take out from the sun, the temperature of sun will not change. So that kind of reservoir is known as source. What is sink? It is a reservoir which has capacity to absorb thermal energy without undergoing any temperature change. So at the place of sink, we can take the example of sea, we can take the example of surroundings, that every day our surroundings or our earth is absorbing enormous amount of heat, but the temperature of earth is not getting increased. Yeah, in some cases you can say because of global warming the temperature of earth is increasing day by day, but it is not because of sunlight only, right? So sea, take the example of oceans, that if you supply enormous amount of heat into the oceans, then again the overall temperature of the ocean will not increase. So that kind of reservoir will act as sink, right? So dear students, now we are very clear that what is source and what is sink. Source is a reservoir which has a large capacity of thermal energy and it can supply without undergoing any temperature change. And sink, it is a reservoir which has a capacity to absorb thermal energy without undergoing any temperature change. Now, work is said to be a high grade energy and heat is a low grade energy. Why it is so? Why is it so? This is so because work work can be completely transformed into heat, right? Work can be completely gets converted into heat, but heat cannot gets completely converted into work, right? So that's why work is known as high grade energy and heat is a low grade energy. And here it is also written the complete conversion of low grade energy, that is heat, into high grade energy work in a cycle is impossible. Obviously high grade energy can be converted into low grade energy, but how a low grade energy can convert it into high grade energy? So this is really a correct sentence. The complete conversion of heat into work is not possible in a cycle, but yes, at the same time the complete conversion of work in heat is possible. So these fundamentals we have to remember, or we have to keep these fundamentals in mind throughout the study of thermodynamics. Now next, move to the next slide. Now we will discuss the statement of second law of thermodynamics. So there are two statements in second law of thermodynamics. First is Kelvin-Planck statement and second is Clausius statement. So let us see first of all Kelvin-Planck statement. So what Kelvin-Planck told us about second law of thermodynamics? So Kelvin-Planck statement is, it is impossible to develop a device operating on a cycle which produces work continuously by exchanging heat with a single reservoir, right? This device is known as PMM2, that is perpetual motion machine of second kind, and it is impossible. So Kelvin-Planck told us that it is impossible to develop a device operating on a cycle which produces work continuously by exchanging heat with a single reservoir. Now how we will understand it? Let's see this figure. This figure we can see. This is the source, right? And this is our heat engine. Heat engine. Basically the concept of heat engine came from Kelvin-Planck statement itself. So from source we are taking some heat into the heat engine, that is Q1 equal to Qs, that is heat supplied, right? And this heat engine is doing some work. If we have supplied some heat into this heat engine, then heat engine is doing some work, that is W net, that is equal to Q1. But my dear students, we have already seen from the first law of thermodynamics that complete conversion of heat into work is not possible. So it is contradicting our first law of thermodynamics, right? That heat is coming and it is getting converted completely into work. So here what is Q2? Q2 is nothing but the heat rejection. Q2 is nothing but the heat rejection. Here we can see it Q2. So heat rejection Q2 is 0 here. So till the time this heat rejection Q2 will be 0, that process is not, that particular device is not possible. So there should be some heat rejection, because if there will be no heat rejection, then it is contradicting the first law of thermodynamics. That's why we call it PMM2. PMM2 is perpetual motion machine of second kind, and that is impossible. So that means Kelvin-Planck told us that it is impossible to develop a device operating on a cycle which produces work continuously by exchanging heat with a single reservoir. So there should be other reservoir also, then only we can produce work by exchanging heat with two reservoirs, right? So this was the figure of PMM1 and this was the figure of basically heat engine. So this is source temperature T1, this is our heat engine, and this is sink, or we can say its surrounding, right? So from source we have taken some heat into the heat engine, and some part of heat gets converted into work and some gets rejected as Q2 to the sink. So this is our heat engine. We can say this is our heat engine, right? So concept of heat engine basically came from Kelvin-Planck statement, right? So what is heat engine? Heat engine is a device which converts a part of heat into work and rejects remaining to the sink or surrounding, right? Heat engine is a cyclically operating device. So here we can see that some part of heat gets converted into work and some is rejected as Q2. So this is the concept of heat engine. Heat engine, here heat engine producing net work in a cycle by exchanging heat at two different temperatures. So Kelvin, for the validation of Kelvin-Planck statement, there should be two reservoirs, one is source and one is sink, and heat should be rejected from the heat engine to the sink for producing net work. Now we want to find out the efficiency of that heat engine. So we know the formula of efficiency, that is output divided by input. And what we can see here, what is output? Here our W net is output and input is heat supplied, that is Q1. Input is heat supplied Q1. It is our heat engine. So outgoing energy is net work and incoming energy is Q1, that is heat supplied. So this W net is our output and this Q1 is our input. So here we can see at the place of output we have written W net and at the place of input we have written Q1. W net can also be written as here in this diagram we can see that is two things are outgoing from the system, that is W net and that is Q1 and Q2, and Q1 is coming into the system. So from the energy balance we can see summation of energy entering to the system and summation of energy going out from the system. So that will be equal to Q1 equal to W net plus Q2. So here we have written Q1 equal to W net plus Q2, and we can write from here W net equal to Q1 minus Q2. So at the place of W net we have written Q1 minus Q2 divided by Q, and Q1 we will take denominator individually with Q1 and Q2. So we can write it Q1 will get cancelled out and we will have 1 minus Q2 by Q1 as the efficiency of heat engine, right? So here in this diagram you can also see this is our heat engine. Here is the heat supplied to the heat engine, here is the work net work we have found out, and here is the Q2, that is heat rejected to the sink. Experience shows that W net is less than Q1, right? Since heat Q1 transferred to a system cannot be completely converted to work in a cycle. Yes, it is right. Why Q1 is more than W net? Because Q1 is the summation of W net and Q2, and there is also some Q2. So it is very obvious that Q1 heat supplied will be greater than net work. So therefore efficiency is less than unity. A heat engine can never be 100% efficient, right? So from these equations and from these theories we can understand that heat engine can never be 100% efficient. Therefore Q2 is greater than 0 and there has always to be a heat rejection, right? Heat rejection. So to produce net work in a thermodynamic cycle, a heat engine has thus to exchange heat with two reservoirs, the source and the sink. So that is very obvious, and this is the outcome of second law of thermodynamics, and this is the outcome of Kelvin-Planck statement that to produce net work in a thermodynamic cycle, a heat engine has thus to exchange heat with two reservoirs, the source and the sink. Now dear students, move to the second statement of second law of thermodynamics given by Clausius. So what Clausius said? So Clausius' statement is, it is impossible to construct a device operating in a cycle which transfer heat from lower temperature body to higher temperature body without any external input. Yes, we all know that how can a cycle can be made in which we can transfer heat from lower temperature body to higher temperature body without any external input, alright, because that is not an spontaneous process. Yeah, spontaneous process can happen, that heat can transfer from higher temperature body to lower temperature body, but this is not at all a spontaneous process. So here it is written that it is impossible to construct a device operating in a cycle which transfer heat from lower temperature body to higher temperature body without any external input. So from here, from this Clausius statement, we got the concept of a refrigerator. From Clausius statement, we got the concept of refrigerator. Dear students, what is refrigerator? A refrigerator is a device which operating in a cycle maintains a body at a temperature lower than the temperature of the surroundings. How we get cool water? How we get cool water from the refrigerator? Yes, just because of this process, because refrigerator is a device which maintains the temperature of the system lower than the surrounding. So we can understand it by this diagram here drawn. This is our temperature T1, higher temperature, right? This is our surrounding here. This is our refrigerator and this is our storage, that is this is our room, right? Storage, or we can say our system, which we have to from which we have to lower the temperature, where we have to lower the temperature, right? So this is our refrigerator. So we are supplying some work input into the refrigerator, then heat is coming out from the storage or from the lower temperature place, and then it will go to the higher temperature place. That means here we are transferring heat from lower temperature body to higher temperature body. That means area of focus is our storage. This storage is our area of focus, area of concentration. We want to decrease the temperature of storage. So by the help of work input in a refrigerator, we are decreasing the decreasing the temperature of the storage by rejecting heat from the storage. So right, so T1 is higher temperature, T2 is lower temperature, and area of concentration here in refrigerator is our storage, because we want to reduce the temperature of the storage, right? So here we can see, just like efficiency in a heat engine cycle, there is a performance parameter in refrigerator cycle called as coefficient of performance. Here we cannot find out the efficiency because we are not getting any work output, right? We are putting input here and we are seeing the performance of the system. So that's why we will find it out here, coefficient of performance or energy performance ratio. It is also known as energy performance ratio. So what will be the formula of COP? COP is coefficient of performance. Formula will be desired effect divided by work input. This will be output and this will be input. So what will be the output here? Output here will be the desired effect. Desired effect, that is reducing the temperature. And how we are reducing the temperature? By the help of rejecting heat. So what heat we are rejecting? This is Q2 we are rejecting, right? So desired effect is our Q2. We want to reject the heat from here. So Q2 divided by work input, WIP. And from the energy balance equation, we can write work input as Q1 minus Q2. How we can write? Here we can see W input equal to Q1 minus Q2, because two energies are supplying into the refrigerator. Here Q2 and W input are getting supplied to the refrigerator, and one energy is getting out, that is heat is getting out, Q1. So W input plus Q2 equal to Q1. So we have written here W input equal to Q1 minus Q2. So COP of refrigerator will become Q2 divided by Q1 minus Q2, and this will be valid for reversible and irreversible refrigerators. Now dear students, we will move to the next topic, that is our heat pump. Heat pump is completely opposite to this refrigerator, right? So heat pump maintains higher temperature compared to surroundings. In refrigerator we have seen that refrigerator maintains lower temperature compared to the surrounding, but heat pump is a device which maintains higher temperature compared to the surrounding. So now here area of concentration is this particular room, right, where we have to increase the temperature, right? So we have given work input to the heat pump. So heat rejected from the lower temperature body, that is surrounding, and heat supplied to the higher temperature body, right? And that has become higher temperature body, and that heat is Q1, that is heat supply. So area of concentration is this, and we want this room at higher temperature, right? So which heat we will consider as desired effect? That Q1 heat, because this is the area of concentration, right? So here also we can find out coefficient of performance in the case of pump, that is desired effect divided by work input. So what is desired effect here? We want to increase the temperature. How we will increase the temperature? By supplying heat. So heat is Q1. So at the place of desired effect we can write Q1, and work input is WIP, right? So COP of heat pump can be written as Q1 divided by Q1 minus Q2, right? So difference here in COP of refrigerator and heat pump is that in a refrigerator at the place of Q1 there would have Q2, and here in heat pump this is Q1. So in refrigerator less low temperature means heat rejected was there, and in heat pump this is heat supplied. So COP of heat pump is Q1 by Q1 minus Q2, that is heat supplied divided by heat supplied minus heat rejected. Now if you want to make a relationship between coefficient of performance of heat pump and refrigerator, then by solving the equations or by solving the expressions of coefficient of performance of refrigerator and coefficient of performance of heat pump, we can find it out very easily. So here we have just subtracted the coefficient of performance of heat pump with coefficient of performance of refrigerator. So COP of heat pump is Q1 by Q1 minus Q2 and COP of refrigerator is Q2 by Q1 minus Q2. So by taking LCM Q1 minus Q2 in the numerator we get Q1 minus Q2 here. So Q1 minus Q2 in numerator and Q1 minus Q2 in denominator will get cancelled out, and now we will see the COP of heat pump is equal to 1 plus COP of refrigerator. That means COP of heat pump will always greater than COP of refrigerator by unity, right? So this is the very important equation we are getting. So COP of heat pump is greater than the COP of refrigerator by unity, right? That expression is very important. Now move to a simple numerical, dear students. We have just studied heat engine, refrigerator and heat pump. So we can solve a simple numerical on it. So question is, a heat engine operates between three reservoirs. A heat engine operates between three reservoirs. R1 at 550 Kelvin, R2 at 450 Kelvin and R3 at 350 Kelvin. So R1, R2, R3 are the three names of three reservoirs, and the temperature of the three reservoirs are 550, 450 and 350. For every cycle, the engine accepts 100 kJ from R1 and rejects 60 kJ in R2 and 30 kJ in R3. Find efficiency of the heat engine, right? So dear students, we can make a diagram. This is our heat engine, right? So here it is written, the engine accepts 100 kJ from R1. So here our engine is accepting 100 kJ from R1, that is 550 Kelvin, and rejects 60 kJ in R2 and 30 kJ in R3. So it is rejecting 60 kJ from heat engine, rejecting 60 kJ to R2 and 30 kJ to R3. So we can make the diagram like this, right? Now we have to find out the efficiency of the heat engine. So efficiency, the formula of efficiency of heat engine is output by input. So output here is net work, right? Net work transfer divided by heat supplied, right? So heat supplied, we can see heat supplies is 100 kJ, means heat is coming to the heat engine, that is our heat supplied. So heat supplied is 100 kJ and we have to find out W net, right? So how we will find out W net? W net by the help of energy, by the energy balance equation, that energy coming to the heat engine and energy going out from the engine. So heat coming to the engine is only 100 kJ and outgoing things are W net 30 kJ and 60 kJ. So we will add these three and equate all those things. So we can write W net equal to heat supplied minus heat rejected. So heat supplied is 100 kJ and heat rejected is 60 kJ and 30 kJ. So W net is equal to heat supplied 100 kJ minus heat rejected is 60 plus 30 kJ. So we have got the net work, and net work is 10 kJ. Again we are putting the value of net work into this efficiency of heat engine. Then therefore we have found efficiency of heat engine is equal to 10, that is net work, divided by 100. 100 is our heat supply, and finally we have got the efficiency, that is 0.1, which is 10%. So that's all for today's class, dear students. Thank you.